So we've all seen pictures or other people with P1 Volvos. It has that plastic cover that goes across it, has 8 bolts, and it has the timing cover over on this side, or the belt cover. It says Volvo across the middle, and people get as fancy as painting one color and then the Volvo lettering will be another. But we don't like painting plastic, right? I don't know, it just feels kind of cheap. So what we're gonna do is we are going to get this thing all prepped up. We're gonna do a primer on it, and then we're going to do a base coat. Then we're gonna do a full-on clear coat, high temp with hardener in it. And then from there, we'll do a full color sand and buff. And the problem is this is not a flat surface like many other valve covers or timing covers, as Volvo calls this, right? If you know, like the Honda, the H series, or you know, the B series, whatever, it's just a single cover, and you can just, you know, clean that up, sand it down. The problem is all of the intricacies that are on this. And the problem is this came out of a car with well, it came out of our car, doing the engine rebuild now, 170,000 miles or so. And we can see, even after a pressure wash, we still have a lot of gunk in here. This is like old coolant and oil. And if we look deep into some of the grooves, you can see all of that stuff. So initially we bought a couple Dremel tools and we were trying to do the sanding pads. Those were a little too abrasive. We got the buffing pads. Those did a decent job of smoothing everything out. But what we ended up doing is getting just some Harbor Freight metal wire brushes, and we are going section by section, right? The outside's not too bad, but this is the final, right? So if you take a close look, we're getting a nice even scuff on there. It's pulling all the gunk out of there, and it is rough enough that it will be a good surface for the base coat, the primer that we're going to put on there. So we are going to go ahead and attack this, all the sides, all the grooves, all the crevices. Once we get into the crevices, we may have to modify this, cut it, make it thinner bristles, whatever we're going to do. But we will catch back up with you after that. I'm sure it's going to take several hours. And then we will get ready to do the initial base coat as well. Okay, so a couple of hours in, and you can see the difference already with just the wire brushes that we're using, right? So we were able to get a lot of that stuff off, and just so you can see a before, you know, remember that's kind of what we were looking at, right? And this is kind of our final product. The problem is those brushes, while they're good for the outside, we can't get those things into these little nooks and crannies, even on the other side of the cover, right? You know, this one has a lot more little intricate spots to even get in. So initially we thought, okay, let's go ahead and for the Dremel, what do we got, the Dremel 200L there. We got some of these foam guys. Those guys were kind of working, but they were going through real quick. They were able to take off a lot of that kind of coolant over spill, no problem, but just weren't, you know, weren't doing great. So then we tried some of these sanding disc guys, ordered those up, but those things were much too abrasive. We can kind of see, if we can get an angle there, scratching and that was going on. We didn't want that. So next we tried this attachment here, and it came with every grit of sandpaper from 60 all the way up to like 5,000, more of kind of like a buffing kit, and we were hoping some of the lower grit sandpaper would do well, but even that was going and just kind of doing a little too much. So for example, here's a section we can see, right? It was taking a little bit more off than what we wanted. So then the last one just came today and we tested it out, was this combo with the wire brushes, which is essentially what we're using there. And then some of these more kind of abrasive, spongy, you know, these are still made of like a wire material. So those two, you can see we just suit one of those up, and we were able to, you know, do pretty well. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna suit one of those up, and I'll just show you what happens in this top left corner here in all of these. So I'll pick a brush that kind of complements and can get in there. You know, we have some sideways guys, which we may be able to get at an angle. I like these kind of up and down guys where we can, you know, get in there and it's spinning and kind of work it that way. So we'll do that and show you what happens. Okay, so after a quick pass, we can see that we have gotten pretty much all of that stuff off, right? So here's what it looked like, and here's that. We have some discoloration in the aluminum staining, but essentially that whole surface has been hit with the wire, and you can see that thing is ready as it would be for primer. So we're gonna go through these and you know, see how long it takes us. I would anticipate maybe an hour or two, just kind of going through and getting all these surfaces, and then getting into all these little cracks and grooves and, you know, all these kind of areas, as well as going along the outside and, you know, kind of getting all these little grooves and everything dialed in too. So we'll show you what that looks like when we're done. Okay, so that was about, I don't know, an hour or so. But we can look, it doesn't look pretty, but that's just because we've gotten everything off, right? All the grease, all the stuff. So it should be nice and ready to go ahead and get some high temp primer down. Important note, make sure you got some of these guys, because you can see while the brushes start and look like that as they go, they look like that, or they get all like this was this guy, right? And these turn into that. So we got tons of these little guys everywhere. Should have worn a hat, you know, but we did all the edges, got all that cleaned up. So again, it doesn't look pretty, but we know it is a nice, clean surface for us to move on to the next step. We'll let this sit. We will alcohol it down tomorrow and get a first layer of primer. Everything has been cleaned off. Everything has been taped. The blue and yellow tape is, that wasn't intentional. That was just the color of masking tape we had. So anywhere where sensors or anything will go and still want to seat properly, we taped off. And on the bottom, or let's take a look at the sides, right? So we have all that on both sides, and then the whole bottom, see if we can pick this up here, is completely sealed too, right? We don't want anything getting in there. We didn't fold the edges over, right? Because we want that paint to be right flush on there. So what we're gonna do is, what we're working with today is white primer again, right? Because we are going to go with a paint matched 476 Brilliant Blue Metallic on here. And if we did like a dark gray or a black primer, it's gonna take a lot more product and it will change the color of the overall finished product. So this isn't gonna be a lesson on spray painting, but we have done our fair share. So we're gonna go ahead and just go through that and show you what it looks like fully completed and primered. Okay, so here we are. Good coverage, right? On that all the edges. Nice, even, no bubbling, no dripping. So this is a good base coat for our brilliant blue metallic. Here's what that looks like. Here's our old fenders. That is gonna pop really well in the engine bay. Okay, so back from the paint store, we got our Volvo 476 brilliant blue pearl, or metallic as they call it. And this is a single stage, which will be followed up with a high temp clear. And so here we go. Remember this from a little bit earlier. We're gonna go ahead and start laying down some color. Okay, so the base coat is done. And I think, oh, that is a little bit darker than, you know, what? It's dirty, but you know, you get the idea. Maybe in the sunlight, but what happens is, I think we're gonna really see it lighten up and shine up when we get to the clear here. So let me show you what we're gonna use. And we're gonna go with engine enamel. It's gonna be the clear gloss with ceramic, and this is the high temp up to 500 degrees. So that should be pretty good. If it was a normal painting project like body panels, then we would go on with this 2K clear, which has the hardener built in, and you crack that, shake this thing up, and then it's good for about less than 2 days. But the hardener in there just really locks the clear coat in so that you could do a nice color sand and buff on it. But in this situation, we want to go with high temp, just because it's going to be inside the engine, and we may or may not be doing a color sand and buff considering all those intricate pieces. So we'll see, but we'll bring you back here after some clear. Okay, so the clear is done. Got a nice even coat there. Nice shine. Obviously at this point not a mirror finish shine, because that would require sanding the whole thing, buffing it up. But let's take a look. We can see that metallic in there coming through, right? Get that angle, see if I can get that. Oh yeah. So we're gonna let this cure for a couple days before we touch it. And I think we're pretty much done with this piece.